Hey everybody, it's Ryan from Pi Records, and I'm excited to be here with Duke Galaxy from Duke Galaxy and the Pipeliners. How are you, Duke?
Doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Uh, it's my pleasure. Let me tell you, the style of surf music that you do
Uh-huh.
is insane. It's crazy. It's got this really intense part, and then it kind of goes into traditional stuff. You want to tell me what inspired you?
Yeah, well, our sound is kind of unique. And it all pretty much comes from the fact that, I was the driving force behind doing the surf stuff. The other guys in my band, we used to play in a band in the like around 90. It was called Zoo Music, and it was sort of like a grunge band, sort of. We didn't know it at the time. But we were doing that and went through a lot of lineup changes and lost drummers, and but it ended up being, me and Moondog and Tuber, the other guys in the Pipeliners, and the singer John Schoen. And having a lot of fun with it. And then John went his own way and left the three of us, and we had a gig planned. And um, we decided we were going to do the show without John. And I had been telling those guys I was going to make them do a surf band. And they're like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, now it's time. So we did like 2, 3 practices. I had written a couple tunes. Actually, the first couple songs on the CD we just put out were from that little writing session, and we learned those and maybe a Dick Dale tune, a Ventures tune, some other stuff, and we did it. We went and played this thing with almost zero practice, and we had a blast, and we had a good reaction, at the crappy little bar we were playing at, and we're like, yeah, let's just do this for a while, and end up going for like 5 years. But I was the only one who knew anything about surf music. So Keith, he was more of a I'm sorry, Tuber was more of a he came from like the New York kind of crowd, and he when he moved up here, so he was into like the Richard Hell kind of stuff, and that kind of thing. And Moondog at the time was like Rochester's like coveted drummer. He was in like 10 different bands. But he was a rock drummer. I mean, he was full on, Nirvana, that style drumming, and but I was like, but we're gonna play surf music, you guys. And and my background too was also kind of punk, like John McGeoch from Susie and the Banshees is like one of my favorite guitar players, so that was the style I liked, but I really wanted to do this surf thing. And so we did. But Rob doesn't know what a surf beat is. He still doesn't know how to play a surf beat, like we'll be writing a song. I'm like, could you do something like with like a surf thing there? And he's like, he can kind of do it now, but but for the most part, he's just doing what he does, and I never want to change that. So that's why it sounds kind of different. Is just none of those guys really knew that much about surf music, So
Well, it's quite impressive, and one of the things that sparked me when I read um, your brief bio was that you started around 92, 93. So um, happening in the 90s, a lot of people saw Pulp Fiction, and then there was like this explosion of surf music, but you came along right before that. What was that
yeah.
like for you to experience that growth?
It was very weird. So yeah, we were playing, and I actually used to do Miserlou in the earlier, couple years, as one of our covers. We didn't do a lot of covers. We only did like one a show, one or two, except the first show. But after that, it was like, one, maybe two at most. And Miserlou would come up commonly because it just has it's such a driving, rocking kind of thing, And and then all of a sudden that movie came out. And I was like, oh, now that's interesting. How cool is that? They're using Dick Dale in a song, in a song, in a movie. I mean, it's a big movie, and everyone. And well, then we started getting, oh, you're a Dick Dale band. You're that Pulp Fiction band, And I was like, oh God, that's a little annoying. But so I pretty much stopped doing the Miserlou, but still played that type of music, But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say our crowd base maybe not quite double, but it did get bigger for sure. It was a little more popular after that. So that was kind of cool.
Awesome. Would you say that Dick Dale besides Susie and the Banshees would be
Ah,
your biggest influence on the surf music?
wow, he's definitely a big one. Um, I mean, I gotta say, like my early years as a kid, I had a Beach Boys 8-track that pretty much played 24/7 in my bedroom. So I got a real healthy dose of that style of music when I was a kid. Um, and then in high school, I got a Ventures Best of Ventures cassette that I used to keep in the car and listen to, and I was like, whoa. Now this is like the Beach Boys when you listen to it. That's to me that feels like music where like you're either having a fun time going to a party or you're on your way to the beach,
Yeah,
but like the Ventures, it was like I'm in the water now. I'm actually surfing now, and it was like, I never had an ocean. I live on a lake, so we do lake surfing here, but it was mostly skateboarding, but so we kind of thought that was what surfing would feel like, and now that I do surf fairly regularly, I realize it is pretty close. Um, but yeah, so then the Ventures, and then when I got into college in those early, going out to bar years, like in the 90s, yeah, I would say, Dick and Link Ray was another huge one. I just adored Link Ray. Got to see him play right before he passed, so I was so happy for that. But so yeah, I would say those two guys. Um, the combination of all that.
yeah, yeah. So 5 years. So you went straight for 5 years,
Yep.
and what happened that you guys started together?
So okay, so yeah, we were doing that because everything else fell apart for us, and so we just did what we had, and we were having a lot of fun with it. um and we didn't go too far. I think Erie, Pennsylvania, or New York City, or Buffalo, those kind of places. We didn't really tour or anything, but um uh I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, no, no, no. So you played street for 5 years, and I just
5 years. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we played 5 years. And then what happened was Keith and Rob, the bass player and drummer, they had an opportunity to play with two brothers, the Snyder brothers, who are like a tremendous local talent. And they formed a band together. And so Keith and Rob quit the Pipeliners, and Dan and Dave quit Dog's Life, which was a huge local band, and they formed the Quitters, which ended up being one of my favorite bands to come out of Rochester. They were phenomenal. So I really couldn't be too mad. I was a little bummed out, but I had plenty of other stuff to do. I started playing this punk band, the Thunder Gods, for a long time, and I had some really, really great times playing with those guys. So it wasn't that bad. But yeah, those two started doing that. And I don't blame them one bit for taking that opportunity. And so while they were doing that and I was doing the Thunder Gods, we still kept the Pipeliners alive. We would do at least one gig a year. And it's usually like a New Year's Eve type of thing or something like that, just to say that we were still a band, and we were even writing during that time. We have a ton of material we haven't even recorded, that we wrote during those years, just because we'd write a new one for whatever show we were doing. And we did that until I was probably right to the end of my 30s, and then it petered out. We got older. It was harder to do. We had kids and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we didn't play for a long time, and then it was just last year. I was watching a lot of videos because Rob did a lot of archiving of the Rochester music scene back in the 90s, and I was watching a lot of those videos, and I started getting that feeling. I was like, oh man, I want to do it again. So I said, I'm going to call those guys out of respect and just let them know I'm going to start another surf band. I got to do this. And so I called Moondog and said, hey man, I'm gonna start a surf band. He goes, I'm in. I'm like, oh, I love it. Perfect. Great. I was like, well, hey, I'm going to let Keith know we're doing this, and then we'll get started. Start thinking about who might want to do it. And I called up Keith, and he's like, that actually might be kind of fun. I'll do that. So we did it. We practiced over the winter, and we had planned on only doing like maybe 4 gigs. We ended up doing like 9 over the summer. And we just kept getting all these great opportunities. We had so much fun. We went down to New York and did Unsteady Freddy's surf rock shindig, and
Yeah.
what a really cool scene those guys got down there. And we played the house of the Great House of Guitars, infamous record and guitar shop in Rochester. It's in Irondequoit, actually. And we played there. We just had a lot of great opportunities to play and had a ton of fun. So
So you have a few EPs, but most recently this year, in fact, you compiled your stuff from the '90s, right?
yes, yeah, I grabbed some of the things. I don't know if you could be able to see this, but we did a CD.
Yeah,
Um, it's duct tape palm trees and flying pineapples is the name of it. And this is everything we recorded in that era in the '90s. Even like the outtakes, it's just basically everything. The audio isn't that great, we were always like a lo-fi type of thing, lo-fi DIY. We made our own like record label called Trash Can Records. We had a bunch of bands locally that were on that wasn't on it. We just all used the name, and we all got together and we put out this 12-inch.
oh, nice.
Yeah, it's the name of it is On the Verge of Breaking Even. And I'll tell you, Ryan, I'm still there. I still have not caught up. I always, blowing more cash than I'm making doing this stuff, but I just love it so much. But we had a lot of local bands, Nod and the Thunder Gods, Shop Class Squares, Hilka, Mueller, the Quitters. I was talking about they were on here,
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of not a bunch. We did 345s back then. Did one called The History of Trash Can, and most of these, there's not even many of them around. There's only a couple of copies of them around, but that was the first one. And then we did a split with the Shop Class Squares.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was kind of fun. So yeah, we did some vinyl. We had a lot of fun with it. And I decided, oh my God, I got to put all this stuff together just for my own sake. And then figured, yeah, we'll have something to put at a merch table when we're playing this summer, So
Yeah.
I got an old friend of mine who has a recording studio, Omco, and we hung out a couple nights, and we were pulling old DAT tapes and trying to
Yeah.
salvage them, and half of them were like melted and just not work. We actually had to take a couple of the tracks off of vinyl, and even one might have come off a cassette. I can't remember. But yeah, we got it together and we finished it, and I'm pretty proud of it. I love it. But I'm also looking forward to doing more in the future. We have a ton of stuff we haven't recorded. So that's the plan for this winter, is to start focusing on maybe doing some of that kind of stuff.
So recording and rehearsing.
Yeah. The pipeliners already have stuff to do, but I also do other surf bands over the years. Whenever the guys get a little want to do something else for a while, I just get other players to kind of come in, and we just shift the songs around a little. But we did when we're in the mood to do like punk stuff, we'll do like this band we call the Ghouls, and we glue toilet paper on our face. And there was this band, the Refrats. But lately I've been, probably about 10 years ago, I started playing with these guys, and we call it the Rhino Chasers. And
like the song.
like the song, yeah. But we do different stuff, and we've been playing recently, and we're gonna play this winter also. So I'm gonna have two things going kind of at the same time right now. But we'll see where that goes. So I've got backup stuff going on. I want to play as much as I can, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your guitar of choice?
What is my guitar of choice? Well, my guitar of choice was my first surf guitar that I bought in '92. It was a 61 Jazzmaster that I found in a small guitar shop. It was actually a luthier's shop, and he sold it to me for a great price, and I had it for years. It was this beautiful maroon 61 Jazzmaster, and I sold it for rent one month.
Oh man,
it's one of my biggest regrets in life. But I do now have like the the Ventura series, the reissues of the old 60s Jazzmasters. So I got that and I played it. It's not exactly the same, but I'm probably actually better off with it, having a newer guitar than having something that old like I used to have. So there's that. I like the Jazzmasters a lot. And then I play a Gibson ES 325. Actually, that's sitting here. It's one of the like the semi hollow bodies.
oh yeah.
I had a guy put the Bigsby on it so I could do the surfy stuff,
Nice.
But I've had this guitar for 30 years or so. And that does a good job. It has a different sound, but and some of our more like rockin' stuff I used to do on that, and some of the more surfy stuff I do on the Jazzmaster, and
Yeah.
I'll switch back and forth, especially if we're gonna do recording and stuff, but
For your, do you use the same amp for your punk bands
well,
as like the Pipeliner?
no, no. So the punk bands I played in, I have a 69 Marshall tube amp. It's a 212 combo, and the thing screams. I mean, you put it on two and it's murder,
Yeah.
but it sounds so tasty. I've had touring bands offer me lots of money for that amp, and I'm like, no, I already made that mistake. I am never selling anything again. So that the Marshall is what I use for that. But no, I've been using since day one a Music Man, the 210 HD, and I've got a cabinet which also has 210s and a bass port underneath it. And so it's kind of like a small stack. And
Yeah.
that's what I've been using for the surf stuff. And but I recently had some issues. Well, when we got back together this summer, there's a local guy, John Now, who's a genius with the old tube amps. And he hooked up my Music Man and got it all up to par and running nice again, and played great all summer. And then at our very last gig, we were playing with Agent Orange, one of my all-time favorite bands. I was super psyched about that. And it petered out like two songs from the end and then came back on, and I finished the set. Turned out there was a short somewhere, but I said to him, I was like, I've always been worried about this amp dying because it's so old. And I know you can fix it, but if it ever dies and I got a gig, I'm looking for a backup amp. I told him. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, I got an old amp you could use like as a backup surf amp. I could sell it to you for cheap. And he's like, it's an Ampeg. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I've had this Ampeg in my basement forever. I mean, since back then. Didn't even think of it as a surf amp, and I was like, I actually have one of those, John. He goes, bring it down. So yeah, I did, and he restored that for me, and now I think that might be my prime amp. It
Nice.
sounds really, really good.
Nice.
It's got 410s in it, and the reverb box in it just sounds amazing. It's more reverby than my Music Man, which is kind of nice, for when you're doing that that style where you need a little more reverb. So yeah, now I got the big thing in my head, which amp is going to be my main amp now. So I guess
Yeah.
I'm an Ampeg / Music Man guy. I've never owned a Fender amp.
Oh,
Yeah, I see. Yeah, you got some beauties back there.
this one I can't take up past two.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I love Fender. I've always played Fender guitars. I was always just like in the punk bands I played, a lot of Stratocaster was my guitar, love the Strat through the Marshall, but and then with the surf doing the Jazz Masters. So I just love the feel of a Fender guitar. But honestly, it was like at the time that Music Man was being sold, in just that little shop I used to go to, and I got a really good price on it. It was dirt cheap, and it did me really good for many, many years. I just got so used to it. I love that amp. People come up to me all the time like, oh my God, that amp sounds so good. I'm like, you got to get the old amps, man.
Yeah.
That's just, there's something about those tubes, you got to get them. So but yeah, the Fenders I just never, either I didn't have a need for it. My amp was fine, so I just never really played one. I probably don't want to, because I might never want to, I might, now I got to have those,
Yeah. So your new stuff is available on Bandcamp, correct?
Yep. Yep. The not so much the 45s, because I'm down to like 2 of some of them. But the CD is on Bandcamp, and I'm eventually gonna get, there's one of the 45s. I have like 50 of them. Actually, you know what? I might have put that on there now that I think about it. But yeah, the CD is available on there either for digital download or purchase. And I still got a decent amount of those left. And I'll make more if I get low. So I'm going to keep that going for a while, and then whatever new stuff. But yeah, if anyone's interested, Bandcamp is definitely the way to get it from us.
Awesome, awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, or anything I didn't ask about that you'd like to mention?
Oh, let's see. One thing I would like to say is that High Tide Records recordings out of New Jersey down there.
Yeah,
Holy cow, how great is that? I
yeah,
can't believe the stuff they're putting out. I'm so excited that that exists right now. I mean, there's always been like great surf labels and stuff, but they're just putting some really good stuff out. And my favorite is that new Volcanics album. I'm sure
yeah. I
you,
have
I'm
it
sure,
right over there.
oh my God.
It's so good.
It's like, it's been years since I could say I bought a surf record that I am happy and proud to put right next to my Ventures records. I mean, that's
Yeah,
right up there for me. I'm like, there's one song in particular, I forget the name of it, of course. Uh, it's like the third song on the second side. Just brilliant, haunting melody.
yeah.
That's a great record. I play it all the time. So if those guys happen to listen to this, you guys rule. Volcanics, I love it.
You know what? They put it out on Altered State of Reverb. Um, Frankie and the bass player, so
Mm-hmm.
two-thirds of the Volcanics have another band called Gina Georgette and the Monarchs. It's like
Ah,
it's like a Motown type girl vocals,
uh-huh.
and Frankie's a great guitar player, and
Oh
they're
my
all
God.
they're
Yeah.
they're all great guys. So
Fantastic.
yeah, check that out.
Yeah.
You just go on Bandcamp and listen to it. It's really, really good.
Right. Right.
I have a,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a 7-inch right back there somewhere.
No,
Yeah,
that does sound good. I will check that out. Um, so yeah, man. I mean, Rochester, New York, we got a lot of great music coming out of this town. We the television areas and the high risers and all
I
kinds,
the high rise. I like both, but that
right?
high risers, we are here.
Uh-huh.
Man, like I had him on the show, and
Greg.
Greg,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
well, he's a fantastic guitar player and writer. But
Hmm.
the vocals, like I wasn't expecting the vocals to be so amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Him and Todd Bradley together are just like phenomenal. I was a kid watching those guys play. And I would jump up on stage and they'd let me sing songs with them and stuff, and used to have so much fun watching those guys. And I just stare at Greg playing like, how is he
Yeah.
doing this? You know what I mean? They played my wedding, the High Risers played at my
Oh,
wedding.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
That's
super cool.
awesome.
Oh, what a night. It was just they did so good. And we did I went up and played guitar for one song. My wife's name is Lisa, so we did that song Sweet Little Lisa. Remember Rock Pile?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we did that song. And he goes, Duke, if we're gonna do that song, you gotta do the solo. And I'm like, oh no, 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 no way, no way, because that's a smoking guitar solo, so he did that part for me. So that was nice. But yeah, yeah, those guys are I guess I could put them up there with big influences of mine too.
Yeah. Oh,
Like Greg and Todd.
before we go,
Yep.
there was an interesting tidbit you told me that I want our listeners to hear.
Okay.
Somebody actually asked you for their autograph.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So there I was. It was 93 or 4, I forget. And I find out Dick Dale's coming to town, which is, around here is big news. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe he's coming here. This is going to be so cool. So we all went out to go see Dick Dale. He played at a place, it was Red Creek, I want to say. And, uh, and I had heard that after his sets, he hangs out and just talks to people. He was really cool. I'm like, oh, that's good to know. So we go out there and I had just received in the mail the test pressing for our first 45, right? Don't even have records yet. I just got this test pressing. I'm like, man,
Right.
I'm going to give this to him. He was such an influence on me and this, writing this stuff, so I'm going to give it to him. So I was all nervous, I was, starstruck. And I went up and stood there for a little while and he was talking to people. And then there was a little lull and I went up to him and I introduced myself and said, my name's Duke. And, you were a big inspiration to me, and I've started a surf band last year and we've actually recorded, and it might've been 2 years ago, but we recorded and we put together this record and we made a 45. So I brought it for you. This is a test pressing of my record. And he goes, wow, that's so cool. Holy cow, this is your new surf band? I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm super excited. He goes, well, if you're giving me this record, then you got to autograph it for me and then hand it back to me. And I was like, what?
Wow.
No, I don't sign a record. I don't sign a 45 for Dick Dale, you know? And I couldn't even do it, Ryan. I was like, well, there's probably just a scribble across it. I couldn't sign my name. I was too nervous. But yeah, that was pretty funny. So that's my big claim to fame. I tell people that Dick Dale asked me for my autograph. So
That's an awfully nice thing to do, considering
yeah.
him being the king. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was there hoping maybe I could get an autograph, you know, and I ended up, but I got a better story out of it. So
Yeah, totally,
yeah, yeah.
totally.
I got to see him twice, and boy, you know, it was in his later years, but man, he smoked that guitar, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
totally. So, anyways, I want to thank you so much for being a part of our show. It was a pleasure to meet you, and now I have your number. So when you're in Philadelphia, you call me, and
You got
I'm
it.
going to come out and see you.
All right, perfect. Ryan, I appreciate the opportunity, man. It was good chatting with you.
All right, man. Take
All right,
care.
buddy. See you.